And a very good morning to you. You are welcome along to Tuesday morning's OTB AM, and the band is back together. Owen Sheahan is back from holidays. Owen, how are you?
Very well. How are you?
Yeah, good. Good time?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
Good quiet time, yeah.
Yeah.
But
you weren't actually on holidays, you were training?
Basically, yeah. A cold weather training camp, I think, is the correct term. Altitude.
Yeah.
Altitude and low temperatures.
Yeah, very good. And look, you're matching today. Everything is... you look up at the screen when the shot's on you again, you'll see that everything is...
Well, you're saying my jumper's the same colour as my hair?
It's accessorised with your bandage as well.
Oh, right. Oh, sorry, I didn't even realise that I had something on my face.
There you go. All right, if anybody wants to get in touch with us or to ask us any questions that might be presenting themselves to you, you can drop a comment in whatever stream you're watching this on, because I know by now you know exactly how this show is broadcast. We stream on YouTube, we stream on Facebook, and we stream on Periscope as well. You can get us at OTB AM is the Twitter account specific to this show, but of course we also have access to the main Twitter account. A little bit later on, I'm going to join Gareth A. Davies, who was ringside for the Wilder Fury fight at the weekend. Obviously some pretty interesting scenes pre, during and post that. We'll get his thoughts on it. We're also going to put a call into Paul Naji, who might or might not be awake at this point, given that he's on the East Coast in New York. We'll talk about the Christmas racing. The Leopardstown Festival was launched with a tour of Gordon Elliott's yard. Will Callahan was down there yesterday and got to speak to some of the best horses in the world, as well as obviously some of the staff in Elliott's yards. Jack Kennedy's going to be part of that as well. So we'll talk football around about 8:45. Some big stories rolling over. Whether or not UEFA are actually going to do anything about the Manchester City situation, we'll wait and see. It might just be posturing at this point. Are they really going to kick one of the best and most exciting teams in European football out for spending money when, let's face it, most of the other teams around Europe are doing something fairly similar? Do they have the power to actually enforce their own rules? We'll see. We'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. Bring our breakfast menu around at 8:25. And should we get into the sports pages now and we'll see what comes up?
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
Do you have a touch of the fear coming back to work just generally? Is that like...
Well, I have a fear coming into a beautiful workplace like this.
I know, it's always, like holidays are great.
They are, yeah, they're superb. Like, they really are.
The song goes, it's so much better on holidays. It's so much better on holidays. That's why we only work when we need the money. So
well, it's true. I am only here for the money. I'm not going to lie, but as much as a money spinning operation this is for me personally, it is still good to be here.
And where did you go? Tell us. Give us some postcards from Eastern Europe.
Yeah, I should have actually sent a postcard in for the crappy quizmaster.
Man, I can't believe you didn't bother.
I forgot to do that. He needs all the help he can get, that guy. So I was in Poland and Germany, namely Krakow and Berlin. So it's very straight up, very sort of unoriginal destinations, but that's where I went. Pretty good places around Christmas time.
Krakow is pretty unusual.
Is it?
I think so, yeah.
I disagree.
For tourism weekends?
Nah, it's extremely popular.
Is it?
Extremely popular.
Stags?
Not so much stags, just kind of like bunches of young people who need to do something for the weekend or get bored, so they go there for the weekend.
Yeah.
Like I'd been before, so I'd done Auschwitz and the salt mines and all that stuff before, so there wasn't a whole pile else to do other than, go drinking.
Right.
But no, to be honest, there was plenty of other things to do other than go drinking, of course.
Yeah.
Very, very cultural things to do.
Good medical facilities there?
Oh yeah, great medical facilities there. I'd like to thank everybody at University Hospital Krakow.
Yeah.
Great people.
Is it free?
TBC. Let's just say every unusual envelope that comes through my letterbox over the next couple of months will be opened with an element of fear.
Okay. So you do have the fear. Right, let's get to the newspapers. And the Irish Times is leading with Klopp charged by FA over pitch invasion. Also, Modric ends a decade of dominance by Ronaldo and Messi. We'll talk about the Ballon d'Or a little bit later on. A lot of stats doing the rounds about how amazing Leo Messi's season was. And he was only the fifth best player in European football. Was it 60 goals in 70 games or 50 goals in 60 games?
Something like that.
Something outrageous. UEFA promises no losers in new European Club Cup. So there's going to be a third European tournament. It's almost like they never had a third European tournament in the past, when they did have a good Cup Winners' Cup, which was actually a relatively entertaining competition. Then you flip over, it's Guardiola hopes Sané can be retained at Man City. They're in contract talks, even though his contract runs until 2021, which is a bit early to be having the chats now about the contract, isn't it? I mean, it still says 2018 on my computer date, and I know I don't always get the dates right, but 2018, 2021, that seems quite far away.
It does seem that the negotiations around contracts are happening at an advanced rate at this stage. Like the De Gea chat at the moment is happening kind of a year earlier than it would have had if this situation arose like 10 years ago, for example. So I think when it comes to somebody as young as Leroy Sané as well, it's like, well, you know what, we're going to wind down our last 2 years of the contract here if you don't offer me something bigger. So I think that's the way agents are playing the game at the moment. So I can see why that is. Obviously, if something comes out that Manchester City don't want to pay him what he wants, then anybody will be interested in Leroy Sané, you suspect.
Is it worth paying people now slightly over the odds and putting them on a long-term deal and knowing that in 4 years' time inflation will drive wages to a point where that contract looks, oh yeah, look, he's only getting 120 grand a week or 180 grand a week when everybody else is on $250,000?
Yeah, probably. But the thing is, given that they're having this conversation now 3 years before the end of his contract, they'll probably just have this conversation again in 2 years' time if he signs a 4-year deal today.
Yeah.
So I don't think that'll matter too much. And also, it's Manchester City. As we know, they've got plenty of ways to spend money and plenty of ways to hide the function with which they spend that money.
This is the brilliant picture on the front of the Irish Examiner sports section this morning. Thirst for glory. Those teeth, those horses' teeth, are the teeth of Sam Crow, which is apparently still on course for the champion hurdle. Obviously, as I was saying, Gordon Elliott's yard yesterday at Longwood and County Meath, the Christmas festival was launched. So a lot of focus, obviously, on Apple's Jade, who was amazing at the weekend, but Sam Crow, who didn't quite spark. So who knows, maybe Sam Crow can run back into a little bit of form. There's loads of Kevin Cassidy pieces. I'm a great believer in what's for you won't go past you. So obviously he's saying that the fact that he finished so early with Donegal gave him the opportunity to dedicate himself to the club. It's a good few years later now at this point. Lovely picture here from the Supermoon sets over Mandan Gallops in Lambourne in February. I was going to say, got up this morning, there was no Supermoon. So Over the Moon Racing Post sweeps the board at the HWPA Derby Awards. So they're blowing their own trumpet there. At the double, City unlikely to waste any time getting on top at Vicarage Road. So the belief that this midweek football game tonight, Man City are going to hammer Watford. I don't know. Just not sure. I can't see rhyme or reason to how Watford perform.
It's weird that we're already in resignation territory regarding Manchester City. This has happened a lot earlier than I thought it would.
Well, it's not. I mean, thankfully, Everton threw one in at the end.
Yeah.
And kept the thing alive momentarily.
Statistically, I think everybody's kind of looking around at this title race now and thinking to themselves, no matter what Liverpool do at this point, no matter how much they turn up the heat of Manchester City over the next 2 months, it's still hard to... Like, at the start of the season, I was saying Liverpool are going to win the league. I really thought they would. But really, I don't think I knew just what level Manchester City would be at this season, particularly if you told me that Kevin De Bruyne was going to get seriously injured twice before the midway point in the season.
Well, the various people who have sat in that seat over the last couple of weeks have been divided in their opinions about what Liverpool should do at this point. If they don't qualify from their group for the Champions League, do you go balls out and try and win the Europa League, or do you say absolutely not, put out your B team and try and win the league?
Of course you put out your B team in the Europa League. Liverpool are obviously going to finish in the top 4 in the Premier League. They're going to finish top 3 without question.
How many trophies the club won in Liverpool?
1.
0.
Did not win? Oh, they lost the Europa League final, didn't they?
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, so perhaps they have to go for the Europa League. But no, I don't think that matters.
Hang on. You said it doesn't matter. City are going to win the league.
Yeah, well,
so what do you do? Good money after bad?
It's true. It's a good point. But the thing is, when I say that City are going to win the league, I say that I've got a very, very strong suspicion. Now, Liverpool don't have the distractions of the Champions League or any midweek games for whatever it may be, the 4, potentially 6 weeks that Manchester City will be playing after Christmas. Then I think that's a huge advantage, and it might be a factor in perhaps giving us a little bit of hope in this Premier League title race. I don't think winning the Europa League, is going to, be a kind of a gold star for Jurgen Klopp in terms of his tenure for Liverpool. As I say, I barely remember that they lost that Europa League final a couple of years ago.
But wouldn't a trophy, didn't Atletico Madrid use the trophy as a way of becoming a powerhouse in European football?
Maybe go for the FA Cup. FA Cup, Europa League. Seriously, I think Manchester United winning the Europa League, or Arsenal winning the Europa League, or potentially Chelsea, if they fall off in the Premier League, winning the Europa League is a big deal because of the fact that, you know, obviously Manchester United are not going to be in it because they've qualified for the next round of the Champions League. But if you're in that precarious position about not qualifying for the Premier League, that Europa League trophy becomes a serious gold star for you. But I just don't think that's the case with Jurgen Klopp. I think that you go totally out for the Premier League if they fail to qualify for the next stage of the Champions League.
Yeah. I mean,
but I still think that they're not going to win it.
Yeah, well, so that's like that's a bit insane, isn't it?
But Jurgen Klopp's not going to be thinking that. Liverpool are not going to be thinking that.
So the back page of the Irish Independent. United almost need a miracle to finish in top 4, says Mourinho. Pat Nevin was on last night saying he basically thinks that Mourinho's phoning it in at this point. And then there's the picture of Luka Modric with the golden ball as the best footballer in the world. I mean, maybe. How many times did Xavi win it? Once?
Did Xavi win it?
Did he ever win it?
I don't think so. I was actually looking at something.
Isn't Xavi like way better than Modric ever was? Like way better. Even in Modric this season. Wasn't Xavi better than that every season for about 8 seasons?
Maybe not every season for about 8 seasons, but certainly his peak was a decent bit higher than Modric's was. But also Ronaldo and Messi's peak happened to be much higher than Xavi's was at his peak as well, and they just happened to dovetail horribly for Xavi. I do stand corrected. Maybe Xavi has won it once, but I'm pretty sure he hasn't. I'm pretty sure the last person who wasn't Messi or Ronaldo to win it was Kaká, and Xavi came to his peak after Kaká did.
Well, they're saying it's a decade ago since there was a winner. It wasn't.
It was Kaká in 07. But I was kind of like looking at a list of potential Ballon d'Or winners if you could only win it once. And I'm pretty sure Xavi would have won it in whatever it would have been, 2010, because it would have been Ronaldo, Messi, and then Xavi in 2010, because they were going through all the second place people and stuff like that. So, yeah, Xavi is probably a better footballer than Luka Modric is going to be or has ever been. But maybe we're looking at a state where we needed to appreciate the team that was Barcelona a little bit more than the player that was Lionel Messi during the peak Pep years.
Say that again?
Maybe we needed to appreciate Xavi and Iniesta a little bit more than we already do.
Yeah, you should watch the documentary, it's really good. Kelly, a safe pair of hands for McCarthy. So, I mean, this was the most expected staff move in the history of staff moves, but Alan Kelly is going to be Mick McCarthy's goalkeeping coach. We should ask Dean Kiley what he thinks of that. I'm joking. But poor Dean Kiley couldn't get a game when Alan Kelly used to get games for Ireland under Big Mick. And so Kiley is currently at Palace, but Alan Kelly isn't working at the moment. So, and then the news, which I hadn't mentioned yet so far, but Rob Kearney was doing press yesterday ahead of the Bath game and says that he will extend his career beyond the World Cup in March. I would say a lot of those lads are starting to think, okay, so there's a World Cup, beyond the World Cup. He's going to be 33 in March, beyond the World Cup next year. A lot of those lads are thinking, well, what if Joe Schmidt, say we do really well in the World Cup, right? I mean, I'm a professional athlete, I'm going to think the best potential positive outcome. And then we do well, and then Joe Schmidt goes off and takes a year off and then gets the Lions gig. Well, I wouldn't mind being one last hurrah on a Lions tour with Joe Schmidt as the coach.
It's a good point, actually. I didn't think about that. That would suggest, though, that Rob Kearney will be staying put in Ireland.
Well, he says he's interested in the move away.
Yeah, but you're not going to be a British and Irish Lion by playing abroad, because
yeah, totally, yeah.
You're going to have to play for Ireland to be a Lion.
Nah.
Or will they select you even without playing for your country?
Yeah. They've done that. They've done it loads, but if you're Joe Schmidt, you get to do what you want, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's such a short, it's a curtailed tour. I need people who understand my system, who understand my defence. Thanks very much.
Yeah, it's not a bad shout. Like, if you're Rob Kearney, you're definitely looking abroad at this point, like after the World Cup, especially if the World Cup goes extremely well next year. It's like every single box is ticked.
Yeah.
Now I can go do that bucket list thing.
I've had the greatest career in the history of Irish rugby.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah, I think so. Back page of the Herald this morning is Red Mark. Emery says Gunners will be judged on Manchester United match. That's tomorrow night in the Premier League. And Pep says, I'm hopeful Sané will sign deal. Con taking it in his stride as well, it says in the top of the newspaper there. I will speak a bit more about that later on. Back page of the Irish Daily Mail then is City face exile. European ban if club violated fair play rules. A lot of strong sounds this morning that UEFA will take the hard stance, a competition effect from UEFA on Manchester City potentially over the next couple of years, rather than a fine, because you know fining somebody for breach of financial fair play isn't exactly the most effective deterrent. Veteran Kearney then as well to carry on after World Cup. And another story we'll get to in a little while. I'm no racist, claims fan who threw banana at Arsenal ace.
Yeah, and we should just take him at his word and leave it there. That's the end of that story.
Yeah, that's it. That's full stop under that one.
To see.
Thank you for clarifying that. Not a racist. Back page of the Mirror is a miracle if we get fourth. Jose believes that Champions League qualification would be United triumph. And Cars hits back. Lee Carsley is not happy with some suggestion, saying it's disgusting that there are rumours that he's working with the English FA to persuade young Irish players to play for the Three Lions. Back page of the Irish Daily Star then is You're Out. Champions League axe threat for Pep. While Mark knew fate early. That's Mark Hughes saying he knew he was going to be fired by Southampton before the 2-2 draw with Manchester United. There's an FA charge for Jurgen Klopp for running onto the pitch and hugging Alisson on Sunday. And life after Flynn, says Louise Kelly. That's Daniel Flynn confirming the fact that he's going to step away from the Kildare panel. He's not in the O'Byrne Cup panel anyway for next year, doing a Masters in Accountancy at Maynooth University. Back page of the Sun is banned threat of Euro exile for City next season. While a couple of the UK back pages then this morning, back at the Guardian goes with, what I won at the Open is great, but look at what the male winner gets. So that's Georgia Hall on why golf needs to emulate tennis on prize money. She's been speaking to Donald McRae in The Guardian this morning. And also Southgate is saying that he's lamenting the lack of homegrown top-flight players. Below 25% is an incredible statistic, he says. And Champions League ban threat to City, says the front of the Daily Telegraph sports section. UEFA believes transfer embargo is not enough punishment if club are found guilty of deception over financial rules this week.
All right, so last night Andy Lee was on. We're going to talk with Gareth Davies in a moment. But first, Andy Lee was on the show last night with Joe. Here he is talking about Saturday's heavyweight clash. Have a look.
I thought Tyson won, and I thought they robbed him. That's it, and plain as simple as that. I thought he won the fight, and I thought he boxed superbly. And when you put it into context, like, I know Muhammad Ali had 3 years out of the ring, but all that time, he was training, he was having exhibitions, he was having almost fights in the gym, and he was preparing for his comeback. It was just a matter of when, I guess.
Yeah.
And he came back, he arguably fought better man Jimmy Ellis, and then fought another fight, and then he fought Joe Frazier for the world title. And he lost in that fight in the comeback fight for the title. But you look at Fury's years out, almost 3 years out of the ring, he's come back, he's had 2 exhibitions, but when you put it in the context of the weight gain and loss, the mental health issues, the addiction issues with drugs and alcohol abuse, and to come back and challenge the most fearsome puncher, one of the most fearsome punchers ever in the heavyweight division.
Yeah.
And to me, all but win it except on the scorecards. It's one of the greatest comebacks of all time. And he's redeemed himself. Look, I know that he's been a controversial character in the past, his comments he's made. But we have to, I believe, I know him personally, and I believe that was coming from a dark place where he was, his current state of mind at that time. And I believe he's redeemed himself, he's learned, and he's hopefully a better man through all this stuff that he's had to go through, you know. And I think you can see that in his demeanour and how he carries himself now. Like, those post-fight press conferences and interviews that he's done, like, if anybody else was saying the words he was saying and reacted the way he did, they'd be holding him up as that, yeah.
Gareth A. Davies, good morning to you. How you doing?
Morning, Jag. Good morning, Eoin. Is that a bit of makeup under your left eye there, Eoin?
That's it, just a bit of smudging.
Well spotted. Nobody else noticed that this morning on our live feed. Nobody has texted in just yet.
He should have swapped places today and then we wouldn't see it, but he's obviously getting well beaten up before Tony McGregor beats him up later on.
Oh, fighting talk from Gareth Davies.
I've just tweeted, unfortunately for you, I'm getting in the McGregor camp in the new year.
Right, okay. What about you versus Ger Gilroy, this fight that you guys chalked down a few weeks ago?
Nobody wants to see that.
Only in mixed martial arts.
I would love to see that.
I'm far too much of a coward. There you go. I'm happy to admit that.
We're in completely different weight divisions as well. I mean, I'm 210. What are you?
I don't really. I'm 150, I think.
Okay, yeah, right. Well, I'd love to beat up a smaller guy. No. In all seriousness, I think it's for charity, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly will be. It'll be for a good cause.
Yeah,
and that good cause for most people will be
seeing you
get
doing
into a pulpit, you know.
It's great. It's great you're doing it, Eoin. It's a brilliant thing.
Thank you, Gareth.
Well, let's move on and talk about the fight at the weekend. So you were over in LA and kind of got an opportunity to see exactly what the pre-fight and post-fight, and we can talk about the fight itself, of course, as well. But what happened to Tyson Fury over the course of that week in terms of... So I listened to a lot of American sports podcasts, and this was not on their radar. Then they watched it and they were like, holy shit, I really want to see that again.
What, you mean in terms of a rematch, yeah?
Well, just generally the sense of like Tyson Fury suddenly catapulting himself into the consciousness of the casual American sports fan.
Without any doubt whatsoever. I myself thought that Wilder would win the fight, just simply because, as Andy Lee was saying there, I was sitting with Andy at the weigh-ins on the Friday. And we were all doing straw polls together about how we felt about it. And exactly what I felt. You had to concentrate for every minute of every round, or every second of every minute of every round, and pull off another Klitschko-esque performance to win the belt. I had the real privilege last week of being with Tyson's team for the whole of Monday. I was in his camp for the hour in his dressing room before he walked out, which was extraordinary. It was amazing to be in there. It's only dawning on me now, given what happened in the fight, what a great privilege it was, Jer, to be invited into his dressing room for an hour, you know? Whereas a couple of members of his team had said to me, do you want your name on the list to come in the dressing room, you know? Tyson doesn't mind you coming in there, yeah? Because I've grown quite close to him over the last 18 months. I went out to Marbella when he was 27 stone. I went running on the beach with him in my pinstripe trousers and my waistcoat. And we did 4 miles when he could run so slowly because of his weight that he could take mobile phone calls and text. But it was... And, you know, I've had my own depression over the last few years as well. And I reached out to him on you know, kind of messages, DM'd him to say, look, if you ever want to talk, just ring me up. It's nothing to do with work, just ring me. Do you know what I mean? And I, like Andy, I've known Tyson probably about 12 years before he turned pro just, and then I've been through his whole career. So I know this is a long story for 1 week you're asking, but I think we need to learn in this world. Someone says something wrong, yeah, just not to go on one newspaper article or one kind of pronouncement of something that, you know, because it's not politically correct, everyone says this guy's this and this guy's this. I have not experienced bad things around Tyson Fury. I'm serious. I spent a lot of time around him. He's a very interesting man, and he showed himself last week, to answer your question, to be a quite extraordinary human being. He's not only did I think Deontay Wilder would get to him because he's lost so much weight, he's come back from depression, I feared he'd be vulnerable. Watching him in that last hour before he came out, we were listening to Chris Stapleton, you know, What Are You Listening To? Beautiful country western song. It was so emotional in there. We had Thunderstruck with AC/DC. We had Tom Jones in the dressing room. It was just extraordinary. And it's only now that's dawning me, after this monumental fight in which he rose like Lazarus in that last round, like The Undertaker now. Boom, boom. We've all seen the videos, the music that had been put to it. He won the hearts and minds of America. He won the hearts and mind of American sports people. He did a mic drop after us, you know, Whiskey and Rye at the Bye Bye American Pie, you know, at the end of the press conference. There are people, they will be talking about that 12th round and this heavyweight title fight forever in boxing history. He deserved the victory. Sorry, Jeff.
I'll come back to the 12th round and the judging, but you've raised the point about... So Andy made the point that he thought that the utterances that have been...
Yeah, he was racist, homophobic, sexist, whatever it was at the time. You know, I've said to him before myself, don't talk about religion and sexuality, Tyson. Talk about fighting. Be funny. You're just so entertaining. You're only going to upset people. That everyone who's on the fringes of any kind of extremism, where you talk about this, or you talk about religion, or very strong views, people are fighting for their rights in religion, sexuality, all those things. It's not the place of the heavyweight champion to do that. He knows that.
Well, the only counterpoint is that a couple of years ago, we had David Hay come out and use some pretty horrific language, and Kevin Kilbane actually talked about how hurtful that language was, and we had David Hay on the show, and David Hay went, yeah, look, I was completely wrong. It was I went away and I looked at myself and I look back at that and I think that's not my character. He was thoughtful about it, and and so here's the thing, people can people can respond to criticism, and actually the worst thing isn't them saying it in the first place. The worst thing would them be continuing to believe what they believed and not bother to engage or change. So, I don't know if Tyson Fury has changed. I guess that's the bit where I wouldn't mind hearing him say, you know what?
Of course it's changed. He was 27 then, he's 30 now. No, we are not young men, okay? Let's be honest. We're not, no, we're mature. I'm going to be about to be a granddad in a week's time, you know?
Congratulations.
Seriously, I am. You know, we're not children, but we forget these huge athletes are growing up in their 20s. They say stupid things. We all say stupid things. Look at Dan Rowan the other day, reporting on the funeral of Vichai, the chairman of... people say stupid things on camera, off camera. Sometimes they're recorded. I think he's grown up. I think he's grown up. Everything was taken away from him. His sanity, in a sense, was taken away. His body was taken away. He didn't care anymore. And getting back on a happy train, thousands of people reaching out to him saying, you have given me hope in my life, has made him more of a hero. You asked George Foreman, was it the belt? No, it was the people's adulation. Ask Muhammad Ali, was it the belts? No, it was the people's love of your achievements, the people's love of you. Tyson Fury will learn in time that the adoration he gets from fans isn't in the end. Yes, he's an incredibly brave fighter. He's incredibly talented. He's a freakishly skillful 6'9" tall boxer, 18.5 stone. In fact, I think I was calling him fragile before this fight. I wondered if he was too light. It sounds ridiculous now. You know, more than anything, he's a great human being, and he's just shown that. So let's give him the credit for it, you know? He's inspired loads of people.
To what extent has that battle, I wonder, kind of changed his worldview a lot? Because, like, as Ger says, I'm not kind of sure what sort of reformed character Tyson Fury is, but what I am sure of is that he's battled back from mental and emotional demons like none of us will ever experience in our life. So I wonder if that has changed his worldview in a very significant way.
I don't think he's a reformed character. I just think he's matured a little bit. I haven't noticed him be any different. Certainly not with me, anyway. But you know, you can go in search of Luigi Pirandello, you know, and read a playwright from Italy in the 20s, and his theories are that you've got as many personalities as people that meet you. Sorry to go deep. I know it's not psychology hour on Off the Ball at the moment, but, you know, I've grown close to this guy, and I'm not joking. Everyone I meet who's been around him goes, oh my God, he's quite extraordinary, isn't he? He's a very gentle giant. When I went to shake his hand yesterday morning, I'm still on the West Coast, by the way, he said, don't squeeze my hand because my fingers are a bit damaged, yeah? I mean, he was worried about me squeezing his hand. You know, he's one of us, if I can say that. He's just one of the boys, and he is a brilliant role model. He's become a brilliant role model, or an ambassador, as they're calling it, for people who can get over mental health. As he said, he's not a PR merchant, but I think he did a little BT Sport interview straight after the fight. I got up in that 12th round for all the people that have to get over what I've got over. If I can get up, you can get up. If I can get up after you've been hit like that with a left hand, you can get up. And it's brilliant, frankly. And one of the things that the kind of synergy of BBC Sports Personality of the Year in 2015, Eoin, when he had beaten Klitschko, there was a big campaign to get him off the list, and that kind of promulgated the myth that this was some guy who needed to reform his character. He's a traveller. They've got their own views. I think they are a section of society that don't get a fair shake at times. And I've got to say this as well. He was brilliant after the fight. When a controversial decision was read out, he told his brother and his brothers in the ring, everyone else around him, don't complain out loud here, because I don't want all the disappointed fans, 8,000 travellers that were there, and they were brilliantly behaved, to riot or get annoyed about this. And that was another sign of maturity as well, you know. And the travellers, the travellers from Ireland and England were absolutely brilliant out there. They were great fun. Of course, they drank, they sang, they were brilliant. And it was a great advert for them. And you know, unfortunately, I don't know if you want to ask about what I thought of the results, but maybe I'll let you do that.
Well, I guess 2 knockdowns is the bit where the maths comes into it. Yeah, you can just about make a case for a fighter that has 2 knockdowns to make up.
You can make a case for a draw, Jeff.
Yeah.
You can make a case for a draw. I didn't. I scored it 2 10-8 rounds for Deontay Wilder and 1 other round. I could possibly have given him 1 other round, maybe the first, but I didn't see, other than that, he was outboxed. He missed and missed and missed. But people were split on press row. But they were largely, I think Jeff Powell of the Mail had it for Wilder. Dan Rayfield had it for Wilder. I didn't. I thought, in boxing terms, Fury was knocked down, horrifically knocked down the last time. In boxing terms, in boxing scoring, he won on points. Wilder was beaten up in there as well. He ran out of ideas, But it was a brilliant night. It was a brilliant event. And I'm afraid we've got a kind of heavyweight political chess match now and money match to see who fights who next.
Yeah, like that's an extremely intriguing part of this, which I'm sure we'll get to in just a moment. But just kind of one final question on Tyson Fury and the idea of his relationship with the result. Because I certainly got the sense, Gareth, before the fight that if he had beaten Deontay Wilder, that was sort of this big mountain achieved. He had come back from the literal brink of his life to get in incredible shape and to secure what to him would have been the biggest personal victory in his boxing career. There might have been a chance where he says, I've got my work done here and walk away from the sport again. But now we don't know. And this draw makes Tyson Fury's career a very interesting one, where to the point where he's saying that he really wants to get back into the ring once again. And I wonder now, what is the single biggest thing motivating Tyson Fury? Like, you've mentioned the adulation of the fans, but I wonder if it's just a sense of happiness, the sense that he's a boxer again, the sense that he's kind of got back to a place where he's in a happy place as an athlete again. I wonder if that is the single biggest thing motivating him, that he just wants to continue on this golden path that he's been on for the last 6 or 8 months.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point, and I would add to that I think there's 2 things about the draw. The first thing is the draw will now keep him motivated. Yeah. In a sense, they won't agree with me, this team and him. In a sense, it was a win-win because the draw will keep him motivated because he still wants that belt and he's still undefeated. But in another sense, you know how folk are. Most people believe, 90% I think the polls are saying, believe he won the fight. From those who can't score a fight and just watch it in the generality, and those who really can score a fight and who scored it for him. The PR for him, which he probably needed, is actually going to swing the other way in England, I think. That, look at him, he has turned his game around. He's done this incredible thing. He's lost all the weight. He's come back from depression. He's been a shining example. He's gone over there, underprepared, as Andy also said, Andy Lee just now, completely underprepared. That was why I had the caveat that he could win, but he's now battle sharpened. He wasn't then. So when he comes back to England or goes back to England, people are going to be on his side. He might well enter BBC Sports Personality of this year and really have a great time and do very well. But I do think it's a changing point for him. I don't think there's any question about him being motivated. He's told me over and over again that if he can work out pretty much every day for the rest of his life, he feels his depression won't come back. And he was the one, you can see the videos in the change room. Yes, they're public, but he was the one that's kind of saying to him, it's okay, don't anyone cry, we're fine here, And, he's just got to be around his family as it soaks in, because it will sink and soak in, and he'll be going, damn, I should have won that. Damn, if I hadn't been knocked down in that last round, if I'd just kept my hands up a bit more, because the body was fatiguing, I think. I don't think he's going anywhere soon. We've still got 3 undefeated heavyweight champions. A draw was so unlikely,
Yeah, exactly. It was very unlikely. What happens next? What's the most likely, in terms of the most likely match that happens next? Is a rematch first, or what happens?
Well, I think there's 2 things. Eddie Hearn changing his tune in quite public comments in the Mail online, I think, today that was. And he's flown to LA. So there's your first sign, right? He's after Wilder for Joshua now. They know that Wilder is mainly, or in facing Fury, he's mainly a big right hand for most of the fight. That's all he's really got. And a bit of he does jab a little bit. I always felt that Deontay Wilder would be dangerous for Anthony Joshua, and it would be a real shootout. But I think Joshua is a dangerous opponent for Wilder, but I think Wilder probably doesn't want to face Fury again next, because he's a much trickier opponent than Joshua, much trickier. Because Wilder firmly believed he was going to go in there and smash him out. He really did. So I think we may end up in this kind of weird menage a trois where they're all trying to get Joshua. But Fury can just sit out, find out those two fight. He'll fight the person with 4 belts then, unless they draw, which could happen. So I think it's really all up in the air. There's supposed to be a rematch with Deontay Wilder, but I think it's his call. Frank Warren is going to speak to the WBC and appeal, saying because of Alexander Roshin's card, where he gave the first 4 rounds to Wilder, that they should have a rematch by dint of it being poor scoring. But it'll play out in the next 5 or 6 weeks. There'll be loads of smoke and mirrors, as there always is, because it's a huge. Both fights are huge money fights, the biggest fights in the world.
Yeah, what have you heard in terms of how the 3 negotiating parties interact with one another from your sources over the last couple of weeks? Because Tyson Fury on Joe Rogan was saying that what we had heard from Anthony Joshua immediately after his last fight, that that his fight with Wilder had fallen down on the Wilder side was nonsense. That Fury said actually it was Eddie Hearn and his negotiations that was a little bit too tough, and it was Joshua's side that was the kind of Jenga piece that was pulled out and the whole negotiation collapsed. Is that the truth? Who was actually at fault behind the idea of Wilder versus Joshua not happening before now?
Well, I mean, the absolute truth, we probably wouldn't find out even if we went into court. Do you know what I mean? Because they've all got their own arguments. They've all got their own... They're all speaking out of both sides of their mouths in a way, which is what happens. It's misinformation. It's information. Look, Frank Warren, and Tyson Fury have a very strong case to force the rematch with Deontay Wilder, because there's even the this is the most far out possibility. If Wilder refused to fight them, and he was ordered to by the WBC, and I'm just saying, this is the far out scenario. Hearn could even say to him, "Well, dump the belt. We'll pay you 20 million anyway to fight for the 3 belts." So it's just how it comes down to now in a business transaction involving venue, money they're being paid. Obviously, there's athletic desire from all the athletes in this, but these are the end game fights for all 3 men in terms of either the championship or the life-changing money, the serious life-changing money. So,
is it beyond the bounds of possibility that somebody comes in and says, "Here's 150 million," and does a triumvirate where you will fight in this order, irrespective of who wins, and at the end we'll say, is that surely we're at that point now where March, August, December next year, we know what the fights are going to be, and somebody puts up $500 million for that. Is this not where the whole point of DAZN and all those guys is?
Well, I mean, if DAZN put up $500 million for all of them, they'd probably get it. But then it's based on subscription, not pay-per-view, isn't it, on the night? So but they have, look at the 365 million for Canelo Alvarez. Yeah, they could do a tournament where they all fight each other. They could bring one more in and do semis, and of course they could. Everything's possible. It's a very, very creative industry. But when you're looking at that, you've got 4 sets of promoters, or 3 sets of promoters, 4 TV companies, 3 different boxes, and the amount of egos there, and who deserves what, and who deserves what proportion. I mean, I think, given that Joshua's got 3 belts, he does deserve, against Deontay Wilder, clearly a 60-40 split. Clearly, and it may just come down to what's the best business deal. It's very complex at this stage,
But that's the thing. If they push, I agree with you. He does deserve probably 60% of that pot, and we know that Eddie Hearn is an extremely tough negotiator. Like we saw in the Katie documentary, that he's going to get her every ounce of money. We now know that about him. But that could kind of work against Anthony Joshua. Like, everybody's talking about two heavyweights in the world right now. Of course, people who are big into their boxing still know that Anthony Joshua is looming large. But as you and Ger have been discussing earlier, this new heavyweight bout between Fury and Wilder has been the talk of the town in America. So say if we get two bouts in the next 4 months, one of them is Joshua against Dillian White in April or whenever Wembley is booked for, and the other one is Fury against Wilder, a rematch. Well, I know which fight I'm more excited about. That means there's another 4 months where Anthony Joshua is perhaps playing third fiddle in terms of global profile in the heavyweight game, which is incredible to think.
It is. Listen, Dillian White's got to beat Derek Chisora first on December the 22nd, remember? And, you know, I love both those guys. They're great. They're terrific to work with. I mean, I had Chisora winning the first one by a round. It was so close, you know. It could be Derek Chisora. And Fury's even said privately to me, like, I've got nothing to prove facing Chisora again, but if he earns the right, I'll fight him again. I mean, I think Hearn has said that the plan was that it would be White, Chisora, or there's one other, I can't remember now who. It was White, Chisora, might have even been Alexander Usyk to face Joshua next in April. I think that was mentioned, although Usyk really isn't ready. But at this stage, would Hearn put Anthony Joshua in with Tyson Fury in your minds, gents, given if he couldn't get Wilder to agree? Would he put him in with him?
Tyson Fury's a banana skin for any promoter right now if you're going up against him, right?
I think
he's more than a banana skin. I think he is more than that.
I don't think there's any way you're putting Joshua in with Fury until after you've got through the Wilder money. Like, you've got to get that cash first and then hope that you win that. But I'd say if you're Wilder, you're looking at Joshua now and going, well, okay, so I managed to at least fight Tyson Fury to a draw, which is my kryptonite. I will happily fight Anthony Joshua now and go, yeah, absolutely, you've got all the belts, of course I'll take them. So that's why I think the 40-60 split might be.
I agree with you. I think Wilder, we'll end up in it. That's what I do think will happen. I think Wilder will end up either signing, because Hearn's business, I reckon, will be to say to Wilder, we will guarantee you, this is what I think he'll do, and I think they'll try and force Fury, and not that I agree with this, Fury and Frank Warren out into the cold, and I think they'll say, look, let us fight Dillian White in April, and we guarantee you fight, because, well, I think that could happen, and we'll fight you in November, you know? And if White wins, you get to fight White in November, you know?
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting... It's going to be an interesting couple of years, hopefully. There's a couple of years left in all these fighters, irrespective of who they fight.
Again, can I just say, what we need, the reason why it's got interesting is Fury was, and this is why I like the guy, he was willing to come back and fight straight away. That's why we're having this conversation. Otherwise, he'd have been knocking out Molina again, or Gerard Washington, or, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wilder would have been. You've got to give Fury the credit for saying, no, I'm ready, I'm coming back, I'm going to fight the best. That is extraordinary. And to pull off what, you know, this will be talked about. This moment in heavyweight boxing history will go down as one of the great moments. Boom. Boom. You know, unbelievable.
Gareth, great stuff. We'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks for joining us.
Absolute pleasure, gents.
Safe home. It's Gareth A. Davies joining us from the west coast of the US, where he's been covering the fight at the weekend. There has been now enough moments in the big fights between the big fighters to say that heavyweight boxing is back properly. Like, this is a golden age for heavyweight boxing. I mean, obviously, it is infested with problems and issues, and you have to take a lot of what Gareth says in good faith about Tyson Fury being a reformed character. I mean, I remain to be convinced of that, but I can absolutely hear why it matters so much. Gareth talks about his own depression, and I think that if you are somebody who has been through that, then seeing the recovery of somebody to come out to a point where they're able to do their job to the best of their ability again, it obviously is something that would be very alluring. Yeah,
what I find remarkable about Tyson Fury and his depression is just how self-aware he is of what causes him to get into a state of depression. That he knows exactly. of course, he's been diagnosed by professionals, but it seems that he's self-diagnosed his process of recovery as well, that he knows exactly what's worked for him. Primarily, it's just the sheer thing of exercise. He says that just being in the gym, just working out, being physically active is something that's helped him. He's also mentioned the idea that money really sunk him into a hole as well. Now, obviously, he's given his the majority of his latest stake away to homelessness charities, which is obviously a great cause. Holding on to that money, he might have thought as well would have been bad for himself. And, you know, that I'm not saying that was a factor behind it. I'm sure it was given away in good faith. But the way he speaks about depression is actually far more illuminating than most other people and quite a lot of professionals, in my opinion. So whatever you say about Tyson Fury, the whole idea of his mental health and the ambassador he has suddenly become for mental health is an undeniable factor about his character now.
Yeah, it's not a straightforward thing.
No.
You can't just automatically say this is great and away you go and we need to forget about all the stuff that you said. And the Nandrolone issue, like, you know, boxing seems to not really care about drug testing and not really care about former fighters who have tested positive, and I guess that's on boxing. I wonder, part of me thinks that the best thing that would happen here is that Anthony Joshua loses to Deontay Wilder and Wilder has to fight Fury again, because then you have beaten Joshua floating loose, you have Wilder with the belts, you've got Fury who's probably, I think, going to beat Wilder if they fight again, and you just have this rolling situation where the champ is there to be got at the whole time. But you need Joshua to fight Wilder and I think kind of lose.
Yeah, like, it's true. Like, when I was saying there a moment ago that I kind of see Joshua as the guy on the outside in terms of profile, watching in on these two guys, I do think he's still kind of technically the best fighter, and when you look at record, that's probably true, but there is probably an element of kryptonite about Tyson Fury. I think definitely if Joshua goes down, it suddenly makes this three-way fight out for whatever it is, the top heavyweight in the world, a far more interesting spectacle.
So Jason Quigley is on the radio tonight on Off the Ball. He joined Joe for a studio interview. You can see the whole thing and hear the whole thing this evening. Here's a sneak peek.
I've never had a pint in my life. I've tasted a bit of whiskey and Baileys and things like that there. And every Christmas I'll have a wee rum for my grandfather, who passed away about 6 years ago. So I'll just have a wee memory rum for him. But Jamaican rum is tight now. Fairly warms the chest up. But I've never actually sat down and got full or had a pint or in my life.
This is a question I feel embarrassed to ask, but why not? I'm not saying you should have, I understand it totally, but for you, why not?
It's, I suppose, a lot of reasons, you know, personal reasons. I've seen alcoholism in my family, and you know, it's not a nice thing to have in a family or in an environment, you know, but these things happen and these things mould us into people, and look, people out there will be thinking who or what or where, and it's my father, and I want to congratulate him. He's been sober for probably coming up to 15 years now.
Wow,
you know, so he's really changed his life around, and you know, I'm very proud of him because he's in a lot happier place, I'm sure, now than what he was before.
Sure.
And you know, that's probably the things that have turned around and showed me why drink. You know, I have my mates that might go out and I hear people saying, you sit down for a pint and they drink, oh gee, another 2 or 3 and it'll be dead on. And I'm like, you don't even, what are you?
I know.
First of all, you're spending money to buy it. You don't like it.
Yeah.
You'll end up doing something that you're going to regret in the morning.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's a big culture thing in Ireland.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. So more of that good stuff coming your way. It's Jason Quigley speaking with Joe, and that studio interview is going out tonight on Off the Ball from 7 o'clock. So it's time for our breakfast menu this morning. Going to talk about Ronnie O'Sullivan versus it's Barry Hearn.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ronnie O'Sullivan versus Barry Hearn. Conor Callahan's code. Spurs fan raises question mark. Is the question mark really necessary? He says he isn't. Sexism row at the Ballon d'Or. We're starting with Lee Carsley. What's the story with this?
Yeah, he sit back. He's blasted disgusting rumours about his role within the FA. So he mentions, he doesn't specify, but he mentions an article written by an Irish website talking about him kind of being a key cog in the pushing back of the seas that were Irish qualified players playing for Ireland. That, you know, the likes of James Maddison, who was previously Irish qualified, kind of not playing for Ireland eventually, and he's talking about the idea that there was some suggestion that he was a key part in all of this, that an Irishman kind of working as an inside agent in the FA has started to suggest that some England players should actually play for England instead of playing for Ireland, and he's saying absolutely not. Oh, there's the article here. Lee Carsley is working for the English FA to try and stop Irish qualified players choosing Ireland on balls.ie. So Carsley obviously disputes this. He says it's disgusting, these rumours. This is the James Maddison article then. Irish officials dismayed at the efforts to lure the 19-year-old at the time, the Coventry City player in 2016, have leaked out as England may now try to ring-fence the player. So Carsley says he's had absolutely no role in this whatsoever, which you kind of take him at face value for. He's basically, just to give you the exact quote, he said, I read something once on one of the websites that I was employed by the English FA to stop Irish players playing for Ireland. And he says those rumours are disgusting. We need to get Lee Carsley involved in the Irish system.
Well, he said he hasn't been asked. He said in that piece that he hasn't been asked, he hasn't had a phone call about it. Himself and Kev offered themselves to the FAI 3 years ago. So when would that have been? 2015 to get involved. And obviously unbelievably highly rated, Lee Carsley.
Yeah, absolutely. He, like this sort of idea of Irish coaches going abroad in rugby, for example, works brilliantly, because it's like, we'll bring him back to a very lucrative system here in the RFU that's very, very successful. The thing is, when you see Lee Carsley doing so well with the FA, what's the actual incentive for him to kind of turn around and say, I want to go for the FAI? Well, obviously, it's patriotism. It's obviously wanting to work for the Irish system and seeing his own country do well. And I really believe that Lee Carsley wants that. I do think it is a little bit outrageous to say that he's actually working as some sort of agent to try and stop English players declaring, or English-born players declaring for Ireland.
The story came from the Times piece, where it doesn't quite say... it just says that because he works for the FA, Carsley can now be considered a formidable adversary when it comes to winning over the hearts and minds of young players who could choose to play for England or Ireland. It's kind of a Carsley works for the FA now. There are some Irish players there.
Like he says that every person should make up their mind. I wonder, is there actual people in these football associations who have conversations with young players saying, listen, you're in our organisation now, you need to kind of pin your colours to the mast?
Yeah.
I doubt it's happening in the FA somehow.
Is that not exactly what happened with Declan Rice? It's precisely what happened with Declan Rice.
Well, it's a conversation. Is it not?
They gave him a PowerPoint presentation. This is how you're going to fit into our team.
Yeah.
I
I still think that it is a conversation. It's not really sort of, you're with us now, you have to know where your bread is buttered. You have to not put pen to paper because there is no sort of signature, but you've got to pledge your allegiance to this country.
I mean, I think they're all the same thing.
I think there's very subtle ways of doing it, but I don't think it's...
A PowerPoint presentation, not subtle.
Well,
oh, look, there's your face superimposed on an England jersey.
I think David Gold is probably less subtle. At least with David Gold, at least with the English FA, you're actually going to play for this country. You're actually kind of being spoken to by the manager.
Is David Gold's getting rich off the back?
Well, that's the thing.
What's next?
Next, up on the breakfast menu is Sexes at the Ballon d'Or. So this is an incredible story. So Martin Solveig was, for some reason, at the Ballon d'Or presentation in Paris last night. Presumably David Guetta was unavailable. So he's had to apologise to the women's Ballon d'Or winner.
You know who he is?
He's a terrible DJ from France. He had that song Hello in 2010, which is one of the worst pieces of music that's ever existed.
I'm not asking you to sing it, but explain it. Give it to me. Sing it.
I'm not going to sing it. I'm not going to do that to
Come on, it doesn't matter. How does it go?
Well, to be honest with you, I couldn't even tell you how it goes. I just remember the song existing, Martin Solveig featuring some dragonette, is that the person? I can't remember the singer on the song. Anyway, it's a terrible piece of work. Don't look it up on YouTube. Don't give that video another view. So Ada Hegerberg was the winner for the Women's Ballon d'Or last night, the first ever winner of the Women's Ballon d'Or award. And, as you do, as she was collecting her award, Martin Solveig asked her if she knew how to twerk. So apparently Solveig says that this was because there was some dancing initiative going on before that. If you saw the full context of the thing, then you would actually know that there's nothing wrong with this. Here is Solveig's apology on Instagram afterwards.
Do the video first.
Tu sais twerker?
No.
So that was the video first, and then you can get the apology. This is the shittest apology in the history of shit apologies.
Well, guys, I'm a little bit amazed, astonished by what I'm reading on the internet. I, of course, didn't want to offend anyone. this comes from a distortion of my English level and my English culture level, which is not obviously not enough, because I didn't mean to offend anyone, and I didn't know that this could be seen as such an offense, especially if you consider the sequence in total when we ended up dancing on Frank Sinatra, Ada and myself. This was a joke, probably a bad one, and I want to apologize for the one I may have offended. Sorry about that.
He's not sorry.
Yeah, probably a bad joke, he said. I can't believe that a Frenchman has a bad sense of humour, but we've got to get used to these things in life sometimes. So Martin Solveig there. Also from sexism to racism, but not racism and not sexism, of course, because Avraf Pantelli, the 57-year-old who threw banana skin
57 years old.
Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, has come out and says, "I'm not a racist." So he's been speaking to the Sun from his home in Norwich. He says he swears on his kids' lives that he is not racist. He said, "I'm not racist whatsoever. I'm actually a Greek Cypriot. I'm 100% not a racist. I swear on my kids' lives that I'm not that kind of guy. I apologise if I've offended anyone from both clubs." I doubt he's offended anyone. Surely.
If I've apologised to anybody, they both have said exactly the same thing. You know, I mean, if I've offended you, I'm sorry. But, like, I'm not really sorry.
But then he goes on to say, the Arsenal player was gloating in front of the away fans. Is he saying that he deserved...
Yeah.
He came up towards the away fans about 10 metres away, and he's basically nodding his head and clapping at us. He nodded his head and clapped right at me. That is the only way I can mete out some revenge, is throw a banana skin at him. But he says, without thinking, I picked up this banana skin from the ground and threw it on the edge of the pitch. I didn't throw it at the players. It was just on the edge of the pitch. I'm not condoning what I did, and I regret it already. He says he's phoned Tottenham to apologise. I do not have a criminal record. And then the money shot, I've been friends with black people all my life.
There you go.
So there you go. Avraf Pantelli, not a racist. Con O'Callaghan has been speaking in a lot of the papers this morning over in Philadelphia at the All-Star trip. Has Con O'Callaghan spoken in depth about his code decision before? I can't really think of too many, but he's been rather illuminating in these interviews. I'm just going to dig out one of the articles this morning where there's a little line in it where I read it and I'm like, is Con O'Callaghan going to play hurling one day?
Oh, yeah. So as soon as they win the 5 in a row, he's going to...
Well, Tommy makes a very good point that Con O'Callaghan's not going to win the 5 in a row if they win the All-Ireland next year.
Well, Dublin will have won the 5 in a row. He will have been part of the team on the field of play when they win the 5 in a row, like no Kerry man has ever done.
Well, is there not literally a batch of minors there that won the 5 in a row this year? Anyway, so he was on holidays with Matty Kenny this year on the Kula team holiday, and he said, I had no conversation, just chats. I think Matty is letting me off. I don't think he's going to approach me for the year. So it kind of confirms he's not going to play hurling next year. But there is sort of a sense about that comment that, just for this year anyway, he's not going to have a conversation with me. But there is probably a conversation coming down the lines. He said, in the next couple of years, I can't say that I won't, but I see myself playing football, hurling with the club, but football for Dublin. My dad played football and was a big influence on me. He wouldn't have told me what to do. My brother Keane obviously went with the hurling, and I always preferred football and was a better footballer underage. I do wonder if we get to the stage, if Dublin don't progress too far and they're really struggling to win a Leinster title, that Dublin footballer just said to him, yeah, you can take Con O'Callaghan for the first half of the summer, we'll take him in August.
Some kind of job share.
Some job share, not exactly being a dual player, but you're at an inter-county level of conditioning for half the summer. Like, obviously, every Leinster football title counts as well, but...
Say he continues to progress at the level he's progressing, and, like, in 3 years' time, he's the greatest footballer of all time, right? Say that's possible, right? Just he reaches a peak at 24 that is, like, Leo Messi-style influence on games. In that great Barcelona team, the team would still have been amazing, but you add Leo Messi into it, and it's the greatest team of all time. So say he reaches that status. Is there a possibility that he can, like, hurl as well and just rock up and play the football?
Well, the thing, when you talk about the 24-year-old thing, is peak Con O'Callaghan as a hurler, not right now. And the peak of his football career might be at the age of 27.
Could be, yeah.
Like, you look at who's the hurler of the year this year. Keane Lynch. Tony Kelly was hurler of the year in 2013, also young hurler of the year. Like, hurling is a young man's game. Con O'Callaghan, if you want to win a hurling All-Ireland, if you want to be a hurling player of the year, now might be the time to turn your head, or perhaps after Dublin do the 5 in a row. And then the last thing also for across the papers today is Ronnie O'Sullivan versus Barry Hearn. This is just cracking comments. So Ronnie O'Sullivan wants to organise a breakaway Champions League style snooker setup. Barry Hearn, as you can imagine, is not happy with this. None of Ronnie's comments make any sense. They're farcical. I find it embarrassing for him. I actually feel sorry for him. He is deluded, delusional, and has no support. We would miss him, but we are not reliant on one player. There is no player bigger than the game. I can't think of another sport where the box office star is so critical of his own sport. His personal attacks on me are also disappointing. Ronnie is disappointing. I don't want a war with the number one player, but you can imagine the reaction if Tiger Woods had said something similar at his peak to the USPGA. So he doesn't want a war of words, or Barry Hearn, but has spat fire anyway.
Yeah. I mean, golf was in a slightly healthier state than snooker is, and also golf massively did do exactly what Tiger said at every available opportunity, and they paid him money just to show up.
I do wonder if
bad example there.
Well, I do wonder if other sports can learn from Ronnie O'Sullivan trying to start a breakaway Champions League style. Like, what if one of the star players from a weaker county in Gaelic football, when it got to the Super 8 stage, was like, well, we're going to start our own breakaway 2014 tournament.
Who would Ronnie O'Sullivan be?
Emily Mulligan.
All right, there you go. Here's Pat Nevin talking about why he'd have chosen Kevin De Bruyne over Mo Salah in his Ballon d'Or rankings.
To be honest, 6 damn hard. That's harsh. It's really stunning.
I think so.
Remind me of the ones above him. De Bruyne was above him, wasn't he?
Yeah, we have Messi ahead of him. So Messi's at 5. The first time in a long time Messi in his life has been 5th at football. Mbappe 4, Griezmann 3, Ronaldo 2, Modric 1.
Kind of hard though in Salah, isn't it? You know, you could maybe scrape him into the top 5 there.
Would have thought so.
But after that, it's a tough year because you're always going to get Ronaldo and Messi up there. You're always, De Bruyne was stunning. I mean, I would agree with that. I would place De Bruyne above Salah for this season.
Okay,
for last season, I really would. It was that brilliant.
Well, he's 9th. He's behind Eden Hazard.
Yeah, and I mean, where does Silva come in? You know, David Silva.
Well, let me check Silva, because you're dead right. Silva is not even in the top 30 that I have on my sheet here.
It's extraordinary considering, you know. So I mean, it's you know, it's the votes are taken on board, and in the end, you know, there's a lot of players there that you have to be in the right team in the right place. That's another big thing. You know, Modric has been brilliant and, you know, controlled games. But he's playing for a pretty good national side and he's playing for a phenomenal club side.
Yeah.
And if you put 1 or 2 other players in that position, you know, I would almost argue you could stick someone like Eriksen in his position in a better team and he might actually do just as well.
Yeah,
it's one of those things, you need the right team as well.
He's not in the top 30. We have Kante at 11. Pogba's 15. I suppose he was good in the World Cup, in fairness. Jose Mourinho's called him a virus, apparently, in front of the team this weekend, which we'll come to in a second. A virus, for the love of God.
Yeah, Paul Pogba, the virus. Darren, how are you?
Good morning, Ger. Very well this morning.
You're the only one. I mean, we've been ignoring the lead all morning here on the show.
The lead being?
The lead, there's a lot of questions coming in by comments on YouTube, comments on Twitter. Shane Kelly, where did Eoin get the black eye? That was like 8 seconds after we went on air. Fish Bandit definitely took a schlep off a local. No, the one that's one too many, Eoin. Canty says, did Tony McGregor sort out Eoin? Well, Peter Breen says, Jesus, what happened to his eye? John Corcoran, what's the story with the black eye? Stephen O'Brien, so what is the story with the eye? Dara O'Toole, I'm guessing Eoin was taking a bad selfie and dropped his phone on his face. Those very expensive, heavy phones.
Well, there's a crack on the phone as well, so.
I want to see the other guy.
Did Eoin pay someone to punch him, thus ruling himself out with a HIA protocol to avoid the McGregor showdown? While Eoin was away, the McGregor showdown, which you instigated, made Russia Today, Deadspin, Barstool, and something else.
Really?
Yeah.
I missed this.
Oh, yeah.
Made Barstool.
Yeah.
And Russia Today. I did see Barstool describe him as a small-time media personality. Which I thought,
So you didn't miss it at all?
I thought that was a little bit harsh. I saw Barstool. I didn't see Russia Today.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't see Deadspin.
Yeah. What did you make of that? Barstool was like basically your entire life justified.
Well, it was your man Robbie Fox writing an article. He's got a particular adoration for the McGregor family. So I'd imagine.
Is he the guy who stands outside and does
he's the guy. He's the guy who's.
Irish.
No, he's not an Irish guy. He's the guy who stood outside the court in Brooklyn and was like, "You'll do fucking nothing."
Did he have a sign?
And then Brian O'Donovan from RTE took a picture saying, "McGregor supporters are out in force to support their guy today," and it was a bit of a joke. But so Robbie Fox did do that article.
Yeah.
Every sentence that's ever started with "he's the guy" has always ended hilariously. He's the guy that do fucking nothing. He's the guy that ran away, and yeah, they're always funny.
And so, yeah,
Do you want to? No.
You're you're kind of angry that we drew attention to the elephant in the room.
Why am I angry?
I don't know, you just got your big angry head on you.
Well, there's an elephant in the room and that needs to be addressed, and address the elephant in the room.
Is there any truth in the rumours that you were dancing on a table, Coyote Ugly style, and fell and hit your head?
No, I saved a young child from a group of thugs, and I did a lot of spinning kicks, and one of them managed to just get one little jab away.
Like Nigel Pearson fighting off that pack of wolves in the Carpathian Mountains.
Well, exactly. Precisely. Like, that's what one of the guys on the ground were like, you're like Nigel Pearson, before they were rushed away to hospital, and I took myself to the emergency room.
Got to mind yourself, Eoin. You're on TV now. Speaking of TV, Ireland will return to television later. They're gearing up to face China at the Hockey World Cup. Should be on BT. The last game was the Green Machine aiming for their first win in Pool B at the second attempt. Beaten 2-1 against Australia last week. It was a creditable performance from Ireland, who were a match for the reigning world champions for much of the contest. So hopes are pretty high they will get the win later. The match starts at 1:30 Irish time in India. Stephen Kenny believes that encouraging young players to play football is the way forward for the sport in Ireland. The former Dundalk boss will guide the under-21s for 2 years before replacing Mick McCarthy in August 2020. The Dubliner wants to dispel the myth that it's in the DNA of Irish players to play a more direct style. Kenny joined News Talk's Shane Coleman to discuss his vision for the future of Irish football.
Is that your job, to coach football in Ireland, or is it very much just under 21 and looking at the structures underneath that?
My job is to focus on the under-21 team, the under-19s, 18s, 17s, and get the next generation of Irish players, and to help nurture, develop them, and helping with all of the other coaches collectively to inspire them to be involved in the first team and get them ready. The under-15s, 16s, 17s, 18s, and 19s are all going to be structured in a similar vein, and the under-21s, and eventually the first team as well. That's the picture, and I think, skill must triumph over, physical qualities. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
I believe
your teams play football.
Well, I think we must encourage skill. We must encourage skillful players to really develop. We must encourage them to express themselves, fulfil their potential, and that has to be right throughout all of the teams and culminating in the first team. That's the vision, and that's what you want, and that's what I think that's what people connect with. Everyone wants to come to the Aviva Stadium, look forward to going, seeing a team really passing the ball, opening up, and controlling a game.
Sounds good. We can all get behind that.
I don't think in the 4 or 5 years Martin O'Neill was in charge, I ever heard him use the word vision once. I can't think of one instance where he properly outlined a football philosophy and a vision, or showed any remote interest in Ireland at underage levels. I think that's really encouraging.
That wasn't his job as the senior international team manager. Just to be fair to him, he would say that his job was to win games at senior international level and obviously qualify for tournaments. He qualified for one tournament. They had their biggest away wins in 25 years, 30 years. So at that level, that was O'Neill's job. What he's talking about should have been Ruud Doctor's job, and we should have been hearing that. But now at least you have somebody who's going to be front of house talking about that.
Yeah, he's a very impressive individual and very impressive comments as well. After a decade of Messi and Ronaldo dominance, there's a new name on the Ballon d'Or this morning. Luka Modric has won the most prized individual award in world football. It is the first time in 10 years neither Ronaldo or Messi didn't leave the ceremony with the trophy. Modric helped Real Madrid retain the Champions League before going all the way to the final of the World Cup with Croatia. The gala ceremony also saw a woman's Ballon d'Or named for the first time, with Leon's Ada Hegerberg winning the award. The prolific Norwegian striker scored 15 goals, which helped her team win the Champions League. One of the male hosts, though, has been widely criticised for asking her if she could twerk on stage. The DJ, Martin Solveig, quick to apologise after anger spread on social media. Hagerberg, though, says she took no offence because it was meant as a joke.
No, I wasn't upset. He came to me after the situation and he apologized, but I didn't take it as that at all. I got to dance a bit and I got the Ballon d'Or, and that was in my mind, and it was nothing special.
Okay, because people are saying, well, he would never have asked a man to do that it was a sort of sexist thing. Did you feel like that?
No, I didn't feel like that at all, to be honest. And sad if people thought about the situation like that, but it didn't come to my mind at all. I think there are a lot of other subjects to discuss if we talk about sexual matters. Yeah.
Cesar Azpilicueta has signed a new 4-year deal at Chelsea this morning. The club announced that the Spain international has captained the team in the Premier League this season, has committed his future until 2022. The 29-year-old defender, affectionately known as Dave by his teammates who struggled at the start to pronounce the name Cesar Azpilicueta, signed from Marseille for $7 million in the summer of 2012. He's made 298 appearances for the club since then. On the pitch, Manchester City can open up a 5-point lead at the top of the Premier League tonight. Pep Guardiola's side make the trip to Watford. Bournemouth meet Huddersfield from 7:45. Brighton up against Crystal Palace, and West Ham host Cardiff City. While the England manager Gareth Southgate has expressed concern about the number of English footballers playing regularly in the Premier League, only 1 in 4 starters last weekend could have been picked by England, down from 1 in 3 last season. Only 54 of the 220 starters in the Premier League last weekend could have been selected by Southgate, a new low after the previous weekend's tally of 56. This means that the average number of English qualified starters has fallen from about 1 in 3 to 1 in 4 in the space of a year. Southgate is wondering when that decline will stop. He said, "It is incredible. It was 33% on average last season, then it went below to 29 at the start of this season, and this weekend it was below 25% for all of the teams. Nobody can tell me that if players are good enough, they will come through. That is not true. There are plenty of players who are good enough, but they're just not playing." Well, in rugby, Jack McGrath will miss Leinster's Champions Cup doubleheader with Bath. The Ireland prop has been ruled out of action for 4 to 6 weeks after undergoing a procedure on his hip. Robbie Henshaw will also sit out Saturday's trip to the Wreck. The centre is still recovering from a hamstring injury suffered while on international duty with Ireland. Not all bad news for the Blues. Jordan Larmour, Dan Levy and Jack Conan all expected to be available for selection this week.
All right, good stuff, Darren. OTBAM is live this morning with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. Now, James Weldon is the new coach of the Irish senior women's basketball team. He's also been working with the Kerry footballers throughout 2018. He sat down with Eoin before Eoin got battered to have a chat about how football can, I'm joking, can...
All right, James Weldon is the new coach of the women's national basketball team. James, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Eoin.
Congratulations.
Thanks a million, yeah, delighted.
Is this considered a good time to be taking the job, a safer time to be taking the job than in previous years, or how are you playing it?
I think it's a good time, you know. 2 years ago, the under-18s picked up a silver medal in the B European Championships, which was held here. So you have a lot of those players that will probably be stepping up to the level, you know, over the next 2 years as well. Like, so it's a nice time to be involved, you know.
And you've obviously been involved with plenty of the teams at Super League level, at international underage level and things like that down through the years. When you look around at the resources at your disposal now for the next 2 years, I think it is a 2-year deal that you're in. What's your hope, what's your aim with the national team?
Well, I suppose our hope is to kind of get back up on the podium for the FIBA Small Nations Championship in 2020. The previous tournament, or the past tournament, was just in Cork this past summer, where the team finished 6th. So we'd like to improve on that. Before that, they picked up a silver medal, you know, but there was kind of an influx of what we would say mid-tier teams that from the top level that came down to C level or to small countries level, and you know, it was a much tougher challenge in Cork this past summer. Like, you know, you had teams like Denmark and Norway, Luxembourg, you know, teams that Luxembourg played in the A Championships, you know, 2 years before that, like, you know, so it's a tougher landscape now, you know, but you know, I think we're up for the challenge too.
For sure, because Ireland would have a fairly good history in the Small Countries Championship. I think they got to the first 3 or 4 finals, and I don't think they've ever won it, but they've got plenty of silver medals.
In the women's, yes, I think we've won one in the men's in the past, and also under 18 level we've won it once as well in the women's. So yeah, I mean, you know, it's probably, you know, before the team went back two tournaments before, it was 7 years we didn't have an international team due to financial issues, you know. Thankfully, you know, Bernard O'Byrne and his staff have done a fantastic job of rectifying that, you know, so we're back in a position where we can challenge, you know, and I'd really love to see us back up in the top tier, you know, sooner rather than later.
Yeah, definitely. Talk to us a little bit about that. So 2010, height of the recession, Basketball Ireland, unfortunately due to a terrible financial situation, have to pull funding for pull the teams, the men and the women's national teams. if you were told in 2010 that in 2018 you'd be a head coach of the women's national team, would you believe that, or did you really think at the time that it was just going to be a temporary hiatus from the national game?
I probably at the time, initially when they withdrew the teams, there was kind of a lot of disappointment around the country because the women's team was going quite well at the time. They were just on the verge of actually qualifying for the actual FIBA Eurobasket A division, and it was really disappointing because a lot of those players were at their peak. I was hoping it would only be a short term, but it ended up being 7 years. But it's for me, I'm delighted to be involved. I've been involved with teams for the last 18 years as an assistant coach, or the under 18s and different teams at different levels. It was always an ambition of mine to try and to get the senior job,
How do you view your situation in terms of resources then? Because obviously things, I'd imagine, like every other industry in Ireland, are slowly trickling back to some sort of sense of pre-crash normalcy.
Yeah, well, I think it's resourcefulness over resources. In every sport, you look at the ladies hockey this year, performance comes before you get the money, unfortunately. So you have to prove you're worth investing in. So that's a challenge for us, but there's a lot of goodwill out there as well, and I've already, even though I'm not officially in the role, I've one or two people interested in coming on board sponsorship wise.
That's
great. And we're still looking for others, but it's you're just trying to do the best you can for the players, because it is a self-funding program, unfortunately, and the same with the underage teams. So there is a lot of fundraising to be done by players, etc. So it's added pressure on the players, but they have a serious love for the game that they do it,
For sure, and that funding process will become easier if they're more prominent figures around localities in Ireland, and certainly we've had Kieran Donaghy on the show plenty of times over the last couple of years talking about the mini renaissance that's going on down in Kerry that seems to be harking back a small bit to the glory days of Irish basketball. Do you think that we'll get there eventually over the next decade or so, that popularity will keep on trundling on?
I think so, so Mary Maguire is doing a fantastic job, just promoting the game and getting out and streaming the game, and definitely down in Killarney as well, they have a Division 1 team and they're getting 700 or 800 people to Division 1 games on a Saturday night. It's great family entertainment. Obviously Kieran is a colossus, he's a living legend, to just what he's done in Tralee is remarkable, and I think that's slowly picking up around the country as well, and you're getting, the league has expanded in both the men's and women's over the last number of years. I couldn't tell you exactly how many teams it's jumped up, but this year alone you've 3 men's teams in Limerick, so it's growing at a kind of a rapid pace. There's great work being done underage in the schools and clubs. It's probably the highest participation sport, indoor sport in the country, and obviously it's a great crossover for the GAA and for other games as well,
Yeah, for sure. Let's chat about that, because I'd say most people nationally would have got to know your name a small bit when it was announced last year that you were going to go in and work with Eamon Fitzmaurice in the Kerry team. I think you did 1 year with him. You just came in around this time last year.
Yeah, it was around this time last year I was brought in, so yeah, look, obviously Dublin, have a huge influence with J.O. and Mark Ingle as well was in with them. But just had a chat with Eamon and talked about coming on board, and thoroughly enjoyed last season. Obviously enjoyed the process, maybe not the outcome, but I think I learned an awful lot. You're inside there, you're with an All-Ireland winning manager, you're with, Mikey Sheahan, 8 All-Ireland medals, Maurice Fitz, Liam, all those guys, you can't but learn yourself from that experience, Obviously, like you said, there's a major influence on the basketball side of it and the football at the moment, there's a lot of stuff going on that, you can kind of spot, when you're watching games that, be it screening, be it whatever. So I think maybe Eamon decided to maybe just get a different look on things, from my side of it, from the basketball point of view, and I thought we worked quite well together for the vast majority of it. you know, he's a great open-minded guy. I learnt an awful lot about how to communicate and deal with players, and you know, just the vastness of it too. Like, you know, when you're a basketball coach, you're dealing with 12 to 15 players maximum, but you know, you're up to 40 players plus support staff. It's just mind-boggling how he manages all that, and you know, held down a full-time job as well, like, you know, so.
Yeah, definitely. What was your exact role? What were you doing on a nightly basis in training?
Well, like practice, it would be a lot of just observing a lot, obviously, you know, and at certain times then Eoin would bring me in to do certain aspects, you know, say it be on screening or whatever it was, like, you know, but like, you know, I maybe once a week I would hop an email off of him and just with a couple of ideas. He didn't take everything on board, but he, in fairness to him, he acknowledged everything and listened to everything and thought it through, like, you know.
What sort of ideas?
That was lots of things. Yeah. Some good, some bad, you know. Obviously they all didn't work at the end, but you know, I know, I mean, look, it was just like I said, it was a different way of kind of maybe looking at things, you know.
Because like, I'm interested, are you suggesting to him, I believe we should be setting up in a certain structure defensively, offensively with the ball, we should be setting up in a certain structure, because that seems to be the suggestion with Dublin and Mark Ingle, that really it's about their positions and how they move in a fluid way, and their ball handling is actually a very secondary thing. It's all about positioning. Is that the sort of communication you were having with Eamon?
Sometimes, like, you know, I mean, you know, like, I mean, it was just, you know, just even just how he viewed the stats and stuff some of the times, like, as well, you know, but, you know, like, I mean, I'm not kind of stupid enough to walk in or to Jim Gavin or an Eamon Fitzmaurice and tell him how to coach football, like, you know. I mean, you know, the guy has won 6 Munster titles in a row, you know, he's won 2 Hogan Cups in All-Ireland, like, National League, you know, I mean, you know, so like, I think it was just to get a different perspective a lot of the time, like, you know, and you know, just, I think that's just probably a sign of how good a coach he was, that he was just looking for that tiny little inch, you know, that may get him over the line. And, you know, obviously it ended up being a disappointment at the end of this year, but you know, they were very close to Dublin the year before, and Mayo, you know, the replay, but you know, it was a point, and it, you know, in the drawing game, it could have went either way, like, you know. So
yeah. It seemed to me that the Tyrone All-Ireland semi-final that when Dublin hammered them last year in 2017 was a seminal moment for the way we talk about the relationship between basketball and GAA. When you were watching that game on that occasion, because Mark Ingle has been credited with a lot of how Dublin set up that day, what were you seeing on that afternoon?
Well, just the way they attacked, like, you know, I think there's a lot being made too about, you know, just creating the space and just the kind of the screening action as well, like, you know, guys coming on the loop. I think the term they use in GAA quite a lot, like, you know, you know, like, and to the letter of the law, like, what they're doing is actually technically a third man tackle, like, you know. I mean, in basketball,
pick and roll.
Yeah, but it's actually illegal in basketball because the guy is actually moving, you know.
Yeah, it's not a static screen.
Yeah, it's even harder to defend, like, you know. So, like, you know, you could see a lot of that action. You know, just guys, you know, making the runs to create the space behind them, you know, and guys coming running from deep. But, like, you know, I think, you know, systems are great, like, you know, I mean, did a course with FIBA basketball for 3 years. Like, it was like a master's course, and you know, one of the coaches said, like, you know, that Pesic, you know, he coaches Barcelona now in the EuroLeague, like, you know, and he said, like, you know, tactics for one game. He said technique is for life, you know.
Yeah.
So like, you're you know, like, this Dublin team is exceptional, like, you know, exceptional athletes, exceptional players. You know, the tactics will vary, and Dublin have evolved every year, like, and you know, that's probably what kind of sets them apart a little bit at the moment, like, you know.
For sure, but at the same time, you take a team of great players and you give them a set of great tactics and a set of great coaching, and you end up with 4 All-Irelands in a row. There's definitely different factors coming from here and there. I don't dispute that they're a brilliant team. I do, though, get the sense that it was a watershed moment, that it is the start of something like Fitzmaurice bringing you in, that potentially Peter Keane will bring in a coach, someone like yourself down below over the next couple of years, and other counties are going to follow suit. And as I mentioned there, like the previous way we used to speak about the relationship between basketball and football was like, a way to keep yourself fit and ball handling. And really, that's not the real kind of goal at the end of the tunnel here. Like the real nub of the issue is actually how you manage to implement that in terms of your team movement. So there's definitely a future here between the two sports. And you do wonder if players from a very young age are actually involved in setting up on a court, a five-a-side sport of any occasion, of any description really, but that movement where that's so much more prominent will actually help them so much when it comes to playing a 15-a-side game.
Well, I think you've an excellent point there, because I think, basketball is all about spacing and timing, so making your move at the right time, creating space, cutting at the right time, the off the ball movement, watching Dublin in the flesh, in the league game, in the second half, like Dublin full forward ran up the back of one of our centre backs and just nailed him on the screen, and the ball was lobbed in over the top. Now it didn't come off, but you could see there was an opening there, just the execution and the pass wasn't on. So that's off the ball. Like you talked about pick and roll, that's off the ball screening. Now you look at the new rules now, with the mark inside the 21, now you'll have that kind of scenario probably where, they're doing that kind of off the ball screening, and that's another thing that, I think Paul Ganey, referenced it recently, about basketball referees, in basketball, you have 3 referees for 5 players in a very confined space. In Gaelic, we have 15 aside, huge space. Referees down this end, what the hell's going on down here?
And they still get a few wrong in basketball.
Sorry?
And they still get a few wrong in basketball.
Oh, they do, and I mean, this is the point, so I don't know, is it really a problem if, I'm saying, do we empower the linesmen with whistles as well?
Yeah.
And, is it really a problem if they mess up a sideline because they're not running the line? If it's one line ball, whereas some fella gets taken out of it down the other end or whatever, because in basketball they're watching zones, they're watching the areas, that's their area, what comes into there, so a lot of time they're not even watching the ball per se, so I don't know, I can see, like you said, I can see more of a basketball influence coming into it, and it could be as simple things like we have a basic principle, man-to-man defence that, in football, a lot of the time, guys kind of face guard their man, they follow their man no matter where he goes. So my man could be running back towards his own goal. He's not a threat. I'm a defender, so simple rule of see the man, see the ball, So that's just playing with your head up, even when you don't have the ball, and just having that kind of understanding,
One other thing I wanted to ask you about in terms of specific examples is Stephen Cluxton's kickouts, because obviously the way he executes them are absolutely fantastic, and obviously whenever he goes long and manages to ping a high one just beautifully into the chest or just above the head of Brian Fenton, we can all tell that that's just beautiful execution and beautiful skills from both the goalkeeper and the midfielder. It's the shorter kickouts, it's the mid-range kickouts that are very interesting, and it's the movement, especially if you go to any of the Dublin games, you watch the full-back line just bringing their man out and doing a loop around. As a basketball coach, what are you watching there from Stephen Cluxton and from the six backs or more who are actually moving and swindling around in front of him?
Well, the funny thing about it, I heard a goalkeeper being referenced to, they talk about a point guard, the Colin Cooper type role, Kieran Kilkenny or whatever. The goalkeeper's like a quarterback in American football. It's a set play, you can have a lot of movement, you can have a lot of action. A lot of teams are zoning now, so they go 3-3, or maybe a more aggressive zone where it's 4-4, blocks. It is very much about, in that kind of scenario, you can create those kind of decoy runs, you can bring a lot of guys clustering together and just have a specific. But Stephen Cluxton, Rory Bregan is challenging the the mantle at the moment, like, you know, but he's just exceptional too at what he does, like, you know, like, I mean, and he rarely gets fizzled, like, you know, I mean, you know, he messes one up, but it's, you know, next play with him, like, he's a bit of a machine, really, you know.
Yeah, for sure. The last thing I wanted to chat to you about is the idea of cross-pollination in sport, because obviously we've spoken about it there in terms of coaching, but in terms of a player's point of view, like you think about the national women's team that you're taking over now, and one of the great players that we've seen over the last few years has been Lindsay Peat, who played a bit of everything. Do you think that she was benefited by the fact that she played everything, that her rugby career was benefited by the fact that she was a top-class basketballer and a top-class Gaelic footballer? And do you think that perhaps in the men's game we should be actually reading into this a little bit more, because it does happen more in women's sport, I find?
Well, you look, I think the rugby team was named this morning for the USA game, and there's actually 3 basketball players in the starting 15 this weekend, Aoife McDermott and Lauren Delaney as well. So, yeah, I mean, there's a huge case for it, like, you know, Louise Galvin with the Sevens as well, like, you know, and she played Gaelic football with Kerry too, like, you know, so I think it's massive, like, I mean, you know, like, Kieran Donny is a freak of nature, you know, he's a classist, like, you know, but, you know, for somebody so big, you know, like, he's vision, he's control, and it's basketball, like, from you go in there coaching 5-year-olds, you know, the first thing they're taught, dribble with your head up, see the floor, see what's going on. You referenced the kind of positioning and spacing, you know, like, all those things are taught at a very pretty early age, like, you know, and I'd be encouraging people to play as much sport, as many sports as they can, encouraging parents to, you know, like, when I was a young guy myself, I played 3-4 sports, like, you know, and, you know, it's just a great eye-opener, like, you know. And
you do wonder if young lads are being asked to specialise a little bit too young, and the idea of elitism, development squads, obviously they've worked very well down in your neck of the woods, but in terms of those development squads, in terms of people having to pick a sport so early in life, that's actually hampering their future development as an elite sports person.
Yeah, there's a debate there at the moment, I guess, about it, but yeah, like, I would say play as much as you can for as long as you can, like, you know, like you said, the sports complement each other, like, you know, and, you know, like, I mean, it can become too serious, too intense, like, you know, I mean, it's got to be about fun as well, like, you know, I mean, like, one of the biggest things we will try and do with the senior national team is to try and create that club environment with a national team in a short space of time, because, you know, like, they have to enjoy what they're doing, like, you know, I mean, like, okay, like I said, we didn't get the result we wanted with Kerry, but I thoroughly enjoyed my time with the group, like, and the camaraderie of it, like, and the process of doing it, like.
Yeah, for sure. It certainly seems that way, and it certainly seems that you've got a lot out of it as well. James, it's been great to catch up. Best of luck with the new role, and we wish you all the success for the future.
Thanks very much, Eoin.
Yeah, so obviously he's gone from Kerry. He was part of the Fitzmaurice team.
Yeah, he was brought in last year. Obviously, the most famous kind of cross-pollination between basketball and GAA was Mark Ingle being brought in by Jim Gavin in 2017. So that was just before that Tyrone masterclass, when everybody was like, it's basketball tactics that won them that game. Obviously there was far more to it, but the positioning and their relationship with space on that particular afternoon was very, very impressive. So Kerry naturally followed suit, got him in this year for the 2018 season, and by all accounts did a pretty good job. So I do suspect that, you know, with his new role he won't have much time to focus on GAA, but I think we're looking at the future rather than the past of coaching.
The news is coming through that Seamus Hickey has announced his retirement from the Limerick hurling team. He says, it's been God's great blessing and an enormous privilege to wear the Limerick jersey from my teenage years through my entire adult life. It's been an even greater blessing to have been part of an incredible group of people in 2018 and to deliver to Limerick what the proud sporting county deserved. The Liam McCarthy. I've now decided to step away from the Limerick senior hurling panel. I'm eternally grateful to my club, Murrow Bohor, to the GPA for their incredible support and guidance, to the exceptional teammates I've had, the inspiring managers, the perennially selfless backroom teams, the successes, the failures, and everything I have learned along the way. That's a great picture there of him celebrating with his daughter in his arms, holding aloft the Liam McCarthy. What a moment for Seamus Hickey. What a moment of triumph and comeback. Like, as a kid, he ended up marking Eddie Brennan in the All-Ireland final, I think, and Eddie Brennan had one of the best games of his life. You know, he was might have been hurler of the year that year. Certainly would have been close enough to it. But to make it back to the end of the year, and to be there as part of the team and part of the, just like to have stuck it out and to be part of that group that eventually gets there. You know, I don't think it's a coincidence that he did stick it out and that they won. Anyway, sorry, I'll finish this now. It was all made possible by the phenomenal support I received constantly from my extraordinary wife and children, my parents and my family. They've given so much of themselves so that I could live my dream. My dream off the field has now grown bigger than the one on it. I look forward to being the very best husband, father, brother and son I can be. God is good. Lumnak Abu. So we wish you well. Always a brilliant person to speak to, always a brilliant interview, always a brilliant panellist. Whenever Limerick would invariably get knocked out early from the championship, we'd wait the required amount of time, generally about 24 hours, and go, here, listen, any chance you want to come up for the Saturday panel this week? He'd be like, yeah, okay, go on. And always showed up and was always unbelievably honest about the shortcomings of Limerick hurling at that stage, and also clearly had this vision that they could be doing better. It wasn't kind of just platitudes, or it wasn't just a sense of, oh, look, we're really good. It was like a firmly held conviction that whatever had gone wrong this year will be put right. And as time went on, you kept thinking, probably isn't. You're probably going to have one of those brilliant careers where you reach an absolute peak and gain the respect of everybody who comes into your orbit, and you don't get the opportunity to climb those steps, as it was in September, and win All Ireland. And then lo and behold, at the very end, it's the perfect ending to a sports career, which almost never happens. Almost all sports careers end in failure, and it was, in retrospect, it was actually those training sessions and that journey that you were on that made it all worthwhile. But in this case, it's like, yeah, he did actually win a medal at the end. It's great.
Bit of a mic drop of a retirement, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Like, wait to end a 40-something year famine and win it, and then leave after winning it.
Yeah, perfect. So congratulations, James Hickey, on a great career, and I've no doubt that his involvement with the GPA is something that will give that organisation ballast. I don't know what the formal role is into the future. I know certainly he's been heavily involved up to this point, and I hope certainly he will be involved into the future as well, because just somebody who has instant credibility every time he walks into the room for his intellect and for his belief in the sport and just for his all-round good humanity. So whatever happens next, Seamus, best of luck at that. That's pretty much all that we have time for this morning on OTB AM. We do have one last thing to play out here, though. Will O'Callaghan spent yesterday morning out at Gordon Elliott's yard at the launch of racing's next big festival. It's a brilliant place. It's like this kind of thriving hub of activity with literally some of the world's best national hunt horses strolling around and being ridden out. You just kind of get to see what that operation is like. A very complex operation, and yet very simple at the same time, in terms of what they're trying to do, and just trying to get all the horses to be ready to race as often as their owners require them to be. So we're going to play that out, but keep an eye on all of our channels across the day for loads more good stuff coming your way. That Jason Quigley interview looks very interesting tonight from 7 o'clock on News Talk. That's when Off the Ball on the radio will be back, and we will see you tomorrow at 6:45. Here's Will's report ahead of the Christmas festival at Leopardstown.
Delighted with her. She's very tough mare. She showed some heart yesterday. It's probably as good as a run as she ever had, so we're very happy. My plan is to go for the Mirrors Hurdle with her. I think it's the best race that she could win. So look, honestly, it'll be either the Mirrors or the Staying Hurdle. Stayers, I couldn't see her going for champion myself.
Is she likely to get a run now around Christmas as well?
She'll run in Leopardstown all be met at Christmas, yeah.
Sam Crow then, I mean, you must be disappointed. You said no excuses on the TV afterwards. Bouvier was just the better horse, right?
No excuse whatsoever. Bouvier was the best horse. We need a miracle to beat him in March, but it's horse racing, and everything has to turn up on the day, so we'll take our chance.
I know you and the O'Learys were both playing down Sam Crow in his novice year, while I think everyone else was getting hyped about him. Is there any concerns maybe about how he's ran the last two times now?
No, I think he ran two very genuine races. As I said earlier on, like, it's sport, and you can't win every day. We want to win every day, but not every horse can.
And of course the horse has become a bad horse just because of a defeat. And Bouvier, like, I can't stress how impressive he was, given it was his first run since Cheltenham.
Yeah, I think he's only been beaten once over hurdles, and when he was beaten by Altior and Min, two very, very good horses, so he's a proper horse, yeah.
Does the plan for Sam Crow say the same? He's not going to go chasing, is he?
Listen, obviously everything is up in the air at the moment. I'll have a chat with Michael and Eddie this week and we'll see, but at the moment it's still retaining for champion hurdle.
In terms of the plans and the Christmas festival, you're going to run a lot of horses in the big races, 7 grade ones over the week.
Yeah, listen, I imagine we'll have runners nearly every race at Christmas, so if I start picking out one or two now, I'm only making up stories, but obviously we're looking for Appleshade, Sam Crow, Delta Work, all them type of horses, Meg Lecam, we're looking forward to run them.
Delta Work had a great run out at Downroyal recently. recently as well. You've previously said it's a horse you have a lot of hope for.
Yeah, he was good in Down Royal. He was good in Fairyhouse and the Drinmore. He's a good horse. I'm lucky to have him.
I'd imagine coming off this weekend, I suppose whatever with the disappointment in Newcastle, you must be delighted with how yesterday went.
Of course, yeah, I'm very, very lucky to horse to have, and I'm in a lucky position.
Leopardstown coming towards Christmas. How important is that in the schedule for Team Elliott then?
It is. I mean, every day is important for us, but Leopardstown is one of the big festivals, and we're really, really looking forward to it.
I know you have a month and probably a lot of important winners to try and pick up as well, but 2018, I know you probably don't like reflecting during the season, but what a year for you. You know, champion trainer at Cheltenham, winning a couple of Grand Nationals either side the IRC as well. Probably your best year as a trainer.
Listen, it's unbelievable. You pinch yourself every day. You go racing and get out of bed. You know, I mean, even the year we had, you know, yesterday in Fairyhouse, you know, it's unbelievable. You know, the season we've had.
And even if you do have the odd dry spell, I'm sure those big Grade 1 races make up for that.
That's what we all want, the Grade 1s.
Yeah, you're over 40 now in terms of the Grade 1s as well, Gordon. It's ticking along nicely now over the last 11 years.
I couldn't be happier. If we can train as many in the next 11, we'll be okay.
Yeah. What are you hoping for this Christmas then? Is this a case of getting pointers towards Cheltenham, or is it about winning races in and of itself?
I just want to win races, and from Christmas on we'll start thinking about Cheltenham. Yeah.
A mixed weekend. You'll take a Grade 1 win, but I guess a bit of disappointment in the flying fifth first of all.
Yeah, I suppose it is a little bit disappointing that he got beat, but it was actually a great run. He was beaten by a dual champion hurdle winner, and he's only out of his novice year, so it was actually a very good run, and he jumped great and everything, so there's plenty to take out of it.
I was saying to Gordon earlier, you know, you probably have to give all the credit to Bouvardere, particularly the way he finished in the race.
Yeah, he the whole way around. Barry kept having to take him back after hurdles. He travelled very strong and picked up well. He was very impressive, yeah.
Gordon said a miracle's probably needed to overturn Bouvardere at Cheltenham, but you don't give up hope, do you?
No, you don't. Sam Crow, he's a very good horse. It will take a lot to reverse the form, but she have to keep going anyway.
What about Apple's Jade then? So impressive yesterday, her third win in the race as well.
Yeah, she's unreal. She was very impressive for me. It was probably one of her career bests. We went a good gallop, and her jump and was very slick, and she was the only one that could keep it up.
Sets things up nicely now. She's going to get a run again at Christmas at Leopardstown, and then onward toward the mares. Gordon's thinking for Cheltenham as well. So she's got two big races now on the horizon for you.
She has, yeah. She's very. It's very exciting to be able to look forward to riding a horse like her. Is very exciting, yeah.
How exciting is it to be working so much for Gordon here? Because we look around the paddocks and there's stars and Grade 1 winners all over the place. You have a magnificent opportunity here.
It's I definitely you wouldn't get it anywhere else anyway. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Gordon's very good to me, gives me loads of opportunities, and he has the best horses, so it's a great place to be at.
Tremendous opportunities and tremendous faith shown by him as well. You're breaking through 17, 18 years of age, and he's putting you on his top horses.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. That's what you dream about growing up. So yeah, it's great.
I remember how emotional you were after Lebeck at Cheltenham as well. That has to be right up there.
Oh, definitely. It was unbelievable, probably a little bit unexpected. There was a question whether the horse would even jump off or not, but he's a fair horse. He has loads of ability when he does put his mind to it. So when he jumped off, I actually thought I had a little chance, but it worked out great anyway.
It sounds like a cliche, I know, but I'm sure when you're a young jockey you dream about having a Cheltenham winner.
Yeah, without a doubt. I remember getting half days off school to come home and watch Cheltenham, but to be riding there is amazing, and to ride a winner there, it's very special.
Some might say, I suppose 2017 was your breakthrough year. 2018 though, you've developed on that nicely.
Yeah, but it's all down to Gordon. He's given me the opportunities, and I've been lucky enough that it's all worked out well for me.
Listeners and viewers are probably wondering, give us a few tips in terms of horses to keep an eye out then for Leopardstown for Christmas that you're going to be riding.
Sure, they're all kind of the obvious ones. Shattered Love, Apple's Jade, Sam Crow, all them. I'm sure it'll be no surprise to anyone to be hearing them names.
Have you been told who you're riding this Sunday in the John Durkan?
No, not yet. No, so we'll wait and see.
He's got a great team, 3 or 4 good horses on the long entries there. I'm sure it's going to be a nice pick there between them anyway.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what I'd be riding yet, but be whatever I'm on, I'd be looking forward to it.
Tell us a little bit about the lifestyle, because obviously Newcastle, you're on the jet, you're going over there for the Flying Fifth. You're back here yesterday racing domestically, and now you're back here this morning as well, schooling with the horses as well. There's not much let up this time of year, is there?
There's not, but it's you wouldn't. It's not a job to me really. It's what I wanted to do since I was 4 or 5 years old. So it's a bit of a dream come true. Yeah.
No regrets that the average teenager is probably dossing about around this time of year, though.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, but no, I wouldn't change it for anything.
Look, I suppose for you, the key is to try and stay injury-free. There's a key 4 months of the season coming up for you now, and I'm sure Gordon's going to be chasing that trainer's title as well. Yeah. That's the main thing, is to stay injury-free and try and keep the ball rolling and ride as many winners as possible.
Biggest part of the year, though I suppose like we've a number of festivals throughout the year. The new Dublin Racing Festival is very significant. The Bulmers live at Leopardstown through the summer, the Longines Champions Weekend, and you've the Leopardstown Christmas Festival. So there's a lot going on throughout the year, but 60,000 people will turn up over the 4 days at Christmas time, and it carries with it a lot of responsibility. The quality of racing is top class. You've all the best horses there, and you've got a big audience turning up to see them. So it's a very, very major date for us and for Irish racing.
It packs a lot of quality racing into that 4-day period as well. 7 Grade 1s across the 4 days.
Yeah, 7 Grade 1s, and of course you've big handicaps in there as well, and you've a lot of very significant races. Group 2, Grade 2 races as well. So yeah, there's a race for everyone over the 4 days, and it is the mid-season target for all the top horses. So it is the mecca from that point of view.
And I suppose when it comes to the combination, some horses are using this as a step-off point towards Cheltenham. It's probably a key pointer for many of them, like Gordon here in his yard. And at the same time, you'll get to see some new horses running as well, and maybe some getting their first big run out.
Well, I think it's a destination in itself. It's a very significant. Whoever wins the Savile steeplechase this year, that'll be a very important race. Whoever wins the Paddy Power comes away with 200 grand. The Racing Post race or Ryanair, wherever it is, they're all big destinations. So yeah, there are other ones within the year, but the winner at Leopardstown is a very, very happy person.
Trainers and owners want graded races on their CV anyway, but in terms of the prize money, you've gone north of 1.2 million this year.
Yeah, we've increased the prize money. Quite by about 160 grand. So it'll be a big step up on where it was. That's really important. The owner pays all the bills. That works its way all the way back to the stallion man. It's, the grooms. Everything comes out. Everything is paid for by the owner. He pays all the bills, and it's very important that the prize money matches that. To bring more people in, to look after the owners that are there. It's really, really important that the prize money keeps pace from that point of view. So we were delighted that all our sponsors agreed to increase the prize money this year, and that's very important, and we see that as significant in terms of the success of the Christmas festival.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.